Alright guys, hey, thanks for joining me today. So, I live in a watershed district that is very high nutrients and water already, and I'm in the state of Minnesota. Everything I talk about today is extremely realistic, and it's just a matter of time before it hits me hard. I can't fathom that the rest of the state of Minnesota, some of it wouldn't actually be leading, and the rest of it to be following fairly soon. With not my president in office, we know a lot of regulations for the mainstream farmer is coming at us hard. The next couple years, I think we should hold on to our butts. We've seen price gouging and supply manipulation because we have a monopoly on fertilizer in America, and so that's only going to make it that much more enjoyable. Rightly so, city people that see their river turn brown every rainfall event, and see that farmers till right to the flow line in your ditches, right up next to a ditch, they have every right to complain and demand that farmers do better and leave something there. So depending on the field, no dirty water should be leaving your field. Whether that means you need a 1-foot buffer or a 300-foot buffer, no dirty water should ever be leaving your field. That as a responsible landowner, that is a fair request from society to keep our waterways clean. Now that I just lost a third of my subscribers, let's continue on. Regulations, they're going to be hitting us hard. Input side, we've already seen the lawsuits against Roundup. We've seen lawsuits of dicamba with farmer against farmer. We've seen judges trying to regulate dicamba from the bench. We've already seen nitrogen starting to get regulated in Minnesota. We've seen them try to regulate insecticides, and we saw the buffer law come into place. It's just a matter of fact, or a matter of time, before all that goes to the next step. I don't think there's anybody here that's like, no, regulations would never happen. What's happening to Alex the Dutch dairyman is just a matter of time before it comes to here. And so, if you are a mainstream farmer, and you are your normal program, it doesn't matter if you're 200 acres or 20,000 acres, if you're that mainstream template where you go to the retailer and you kind of do your own rough plan and they fine tune your fertility and herbicide plan, and that's what you use to grow a crop, what are you going to do when you can no longer have that resource like that? If the nutrients that you want to purchase, you can only get a half or a third, and the chemical program is completely different, how are you going to grow your crop? Farmers need to start thinking. I don't care. We can agree to disagree of if it works on your farm or not. We can agree to disagree on that, and that's fine. We can have some really fun conversations about that. But at the end of the day, you have to start figuring it out, because it's not going to be long and regulations are going to force you to figure it out. So, on the input side, or finish my thought, that farmers need to start thinking about what's it going to take, how much soil life do I need to have in my field to produce this crop, versus how much commercial stuff do I need to buy to produce this crop. That's the train of thought that farmers need to get to sooner than later. On the inputs, I can clearly see dates. I can easily see that from Thanksgivings to Easter, no manure, no fertilizer applied. If you're a manure guy, here's your storage facility that we've designed based upon the head that you have. And if you need assistance for money, contact your NRCS office. On the fertilizer side, I can easily see submitting soil tests and them giving you a field-by-field back soil test, which you should be doing already as field-by-field management, but whatever. And they say, okay, here's your plan, so here's the P and K for all these fields, and here's the only amount we're legally allowed to sell you. So even if you don't want to follow these plans, you do what you want, you're going to anyhow, but this much is the only amount we're allowed to sell you. Same with nitrogen. If you're used to doing 1-to-1, 1 N credit per bushel, yield goal is not an indicator of how much nitrogen you need. Different video. But what if you're only allowed a half? What if legally they can say, oh, we only allow you a half? If you're an anhydrous guy that does fall anhydrous, why? But what's going to happen when you can't do fall anhydrous anymore? Just asking. It's coming. That'll be the first thing that'll be regulated away. Statewide will be fall anhydrous. Guarantee. I'm surprised that one hasn't hit already. But when nitrogen itself, and you look at nitrogen itself, the amount of lost nitrogen every year, nitrogen is going to be very heavily regulated coming very soon. You better figure out how to start growing corn now on a half a bushel or a half an N credit per bushel, because yep, it's coming. It's coming. Supplies and prices. If you say I always have the best crops when I follow their plan, how does that change when prices have doubled? What about if they triple? If it's, it went from 300 to 600 a ton, how does that change on your farm? How just that price change alone, without any regulations, what does that price change mean to you? What's it mean to you that when you go to the supplier and say, hey, I want some of this, and they're like, well, we're a day or two out now, because of the prices, we're changing our supply structure. How are you going to manage around that kind of system? If you are a complete idiot and you want to shout to the world that we all need to get together and go to our retailers and demand lower prices, the vulgar thoughts, I thought about stomping people like that into the ground. But how you can manage a farm and then think you can talk to another business that way, you're just really dumb. You're really dumb. I challenge anyone that thinks that way, go talk to your retailer and ask them, like, what are you going to do? What, you Monday morning quarterback your retailer and let me know how that works out for you, because I couldn't do their job, so I'm not going to try and tell them how to do their job, because looking at the price of fertilizer right now, the volatility in the market right now, I guarantee any fertilizer that is not already pre-sold is going to be a very, very small pile in the shed, because I'm not going to be carrying a bunch of fertilizer into fall for second application when the markets are that volatile. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. And so there's that. The green regulations, buffer zones, tile lines, stuff like that. Like I said, the city people have all the right in the world to complain about dirty water coming into their city. That's a fair complaint. That should not be happening. There is an extremely simple solution for that. And since farmers couldn't police themselves, the state started bringing in buffer zones. So what's going to happen when the state says, hey, we saw an improvement in water quality from buffer zones, but it's not enough, so let's move the buffer zone out 100 feet. And in 5 years from then, they move it out 200 feet. What are you going to do on your farm to prevent you from being that buffer zone guy and them coming out and saying that? How are you going to start farming, setting yourself up so when they come out to inspect your farm, they're like, looks good, let's move on. Tile and runoff is going to start being regulated. What are you going to do when they put dams and sensors in waterways and ditches, and if that senses sediment or nutrient levels at a certain spot above a certain threshold, it shuts the dam off and creates a sediment zone in that ditch, and now your tile can no longer flow. If you are that dependent on tile, what are you going to do to get your soil to percolate water like it should have, like it used to do, to not be so dependent upon that tile? Same with irrigation. It probably won't be long before irrigators are starting to become regulated. We got water wars out west. My 8th grade science teacher, I can remember, told us, so 8th grade, that would have been 88. I can remember him all the time preaching, in your lifetime you are going to see water wars. And to 8th graders, we're like, I just want to see Susie, that's all I care about. And now you look at it and you're just like, yeah, it's getting closer and closer. And so it's going to happen. But yep, tile and waterways are going to be regulated. And another thing, if it has to keep shutting down for sediment, that flow line, the elevation will be known. And if it's ever not to that level anymore, the farmers along that waterway are going to be responsible for the cost to reestablish that flow line. and the runoff leading into your tiles. I can see the state driving by your farm, and they see these 3 washouts on this slope leading into a tile inlet, and then you can see all the sediment around a tile inlet. I can easily see the state handing you a drawing and saying, here's the plan for your waterways, here's where they go, here's how long they're going to be, here's how deep, here's what you need for rock dams in each one, and based upon the slope and the water flow, you need a 50-foot green zone around your tile inlet. That one I can't beat. I'm surprised that one hasn't been mandatory for any tile going in the ground. But yeah, so these are all my fears of things that are going to be happening to us. And I don't know, you guys let me know what you think about regulations coming and not my president in office, and we'll go from there. Thank you much.